Lone Star today. This one is a 38-inch one. You use 4 colors. So here they're numbered. This is number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Take number 1 fabric and see where on the interfacing it says start. And this piece of interfacing has been kind of roughly trimmed out. I'm just going to line this up right over the word start and have this fabric even with the corner dashed lines. And then here it's going to be between. You want to make sure that those dots are showing in the dashed lines here. So just between those. Then we're going to give that a little shot with the iron. And I like to use steam. Okay, then you take fabric number 2 and you put that, you're going to see a little dot. See the little dot over here? And that dot is going to be halfway between, halfway kind of sticking out. So you can see that dot and it's across from the arrow. So you're going to match the corner to the dot of the next fabric and go across the arrow. Now don't worry if these don't match here. That's not important. It's just the dot and the arrow. And then if you want, you could put a couple pins in there, a little L of a shape in glue in an L shape here would be alright. But if you just hold it tightly, it'll be okay. And if you flip it over, you can see again that that dot matches the corner of the fabric, and the arrow, you can see where the fabric's coming right through there. And now we're going to move to the sewing machine. Oh, and make sure your workstation is set up with your ironing board right by the sewing machine. You'll find that that's a lot easier to work with. And we're just going to sew on the line. It says sew line row 1. And it's right under the 2 pieces of fabric you've got. Oh, and those are right sides together too. Okay, pull this out. When you pull, don't pull the interfacing because the interfacing is really light in your quilt. You don't want it to, it's not strong enough to pull on. But it will be nice and light in your quilt. Okay, now this part is important. You want to make sure you get a nice crease here so that when these are all sewn together, you don't have, everything will match nicely. Alright, so when you press this, you're going to press so that you have a nice crease, and that dot, that's the next dot you're going to need. And you want your fabric to come between, again, the dotted lines, the 2 lines on the side of the column. So you want to be able to see those. Okay, you can give it a shot of steam if you want. Then take fabric number 3 and again place it from the corner to the dot and right across to the arrow. See the arrow there? And again, it doesn't matter if the bottom one shows through a bit. Then flip it over, hold it tightly, go back to the machine, and stitch from dot to dot. And that's row 2. And again, don't pull the interfacing. I was just pulling the fabric. Trim your threads, come back and flatten it out. And again, you want to put it between the 2 lines here. Give it a shot of steam and make sure that seam is really nicely pressed there. Now take fabric number 4 and again put that the corner in the dot and have it come out here. Now see how the green one happens to be a little longer? That was probably cut a little longer. It doesn't matter. Turn it over. Stitch from dot to dot. That's row 3. Pull fabric only, not the interfacing. Bring it back. Oh gosh, look at that. Was that fast or what? That was already 1 row. Now, on this one, this is a light fabric. So if you put this down here, you can kind of see where you're going to get a little shadowing effect from what's under it. So what you can do on those is you can peel back your seam and you can cut that off. There's another good reason for doing that too. If you plan on hand quilting, then you would want to get rid of that too. So I've just gotten rid of the dark fabric underneath, and now I'm going to do the same thing. Just do a nice press, and again fabrics go between the lines that identify the column, and there you got your whole first row done. Now to go to the second row, you just take fabric number 2. So column 2 starts with fabric 2. And all you do is match that up at the top, and again position it between the dashed lines. Looks like these fabrics here, which I cut, are probably a little tiny bit on the thick side. They're supposed to be 2.5 inches, so these fit fairly tightly in there, but I can still see my little marker there across from the arrow. So I'm going to press that down, and then I'm going to take fabric number 3, and there's that dot across from the arrow, and I'm just going to go like that, and I'm going to stitch. And trim your threads. And you can see how the diamonds are starting to form. Okay, and the next one, fabric number 4. That's pretty, isn't it? We'll just cut that off. Okay, this one is the one again where every time we're going to use that light yellow, we're going to want to trim off that underneath part so it doesn't show through. And that would probably be in the seam allowance anyways there, but I'll just clip it. And again, right between, now see how this is the yellow fabric, I've cut just a tiny bit. It's supposed to be 2.5 inches wide, but we all know that that can be a little bit one side of it or a little bit bigger. So there's the dot, there's the arrow, and our next color is going to be back to color 1. So this was fabric number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then column 2 started with fabric 2, 3, 4, and back to 1. So it's a repeat. So again, we're going to have the corner match the dot, the edge match the arrow, and stitch from dot to dot. Pull the fabric, not the interfacing. Trim your threads. Oops. Oops. And press, and make sure your fabric goes between the lines on each side of the column. And there you have 2 rows done.